Ladies and gentlemen, I know, feel invited here to join us for this discussion. I know it's a challenge for you because you are now with this panel after the second coffee break. So it's not easy, but I think we should start now. I have the pleasure to introduce to you the moderator of this panel. It's Professor Witold Wiliński, Associate Professor at SGH, Warsaw School of Economics, and CEO of GPW Tech, which is a daughter company of the place we are here now. And I think we are ready now. Professor Wiliński, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. The title of today's panel, this is FinTech Opportunities in Poland and Switzerland. So it will be about two completely different markets with a completely different history and completely different structure of the financial market. And I would like to start by the introduction of our panelists. First, Mr. Paweł Widawski, the president of FinTech Poland, leader of Poland's main non-profit think tank on digital finance. The second, Professor Cornelia Stengel, attorney at law and partner at, and here could you help me because... yes, exactly. My pronunciation in German is not very good, so thank you for your help. As well as co-director of Swiss FinTech Innovation. Swiss FinTech Innovation is an association of banks and insurance companies, as well as other companies involved in the financial market. The third panelist, Mr. Thibaut Rouquette. I hope that now the pronunciation is good.
Perfect.
Thibaut heads a partnership for F10. He has spent over a decade building and investing in innovative new ventures, as well as advising large financial institutions to engage with the best fintech companies worldwide. Okay, and Mr. Radomir Mastalerz, the CEO of WealthArc, a Zurich-based wealth management fintech with Polish roots, and a member of Swiss Association Open Wealth that advocates common standard for financial data exchange. And this was about our panelists which are with us. And finally, Mr. Matteo Bernardis, I give you the floor to present yourself.
Thank you, and I hope you can hear me well. Yes, so I'm responsible for UBS Next, which is the innovation unit of UBS in the areas of strategic investing, running our corporate VC, and research activities associated with it.
Okay, thank you. So the first round of our question, the first question will be to Mr. Paweł Widawski, or perhaps you will receive two questions. One question will be related to the current political situation, the war that we have between Russia and Ukraine, and second, and the first one will be related to your organization. So one of the goals of FinTech Poland is to promote Polish digital finance, both nationally and from the international point of view. How successful are Polish fintechs? This is the first question. And the second, and has the Russian aggression against Ukraine had an impact on the number of fintechs entrepreneurs that we have now in Poland?
Sure. Mr. Professor, thank you very much for invitation and thank you for this question. So some general remarks. The Polish fintech sector is growing really rapidly. We publish every year Polish fintech map, and in 2018 there were about 150 fintechs, and today in 2022 there are more than 300 fintechs. So as you can see, the market is really vibrant, is growing really rapidly. The second remark relates to the profile of Polish fintech sector. In Poland, fintech should be defined in a really broad way. as we have very innovative banks, which considers themselves as a fintechs as well. And banks individually and collectively create really breakthrough innovations in Poland. Good example is, of course, Blik, a very strong player, a really strong brand, which is widely known. So, answering this question, Polish.
Which starts the expansion abroad, of course.
Yes, it's quite important, as traditionally Polish fintechs are rather focused on Polish local market. But in recent years, we see the change in this space, and more companies decide for expansion, which is not easy, but the willingness of expansion and awareness that Polish market is rather too small for them is a good sign of the maturity of our market. You mentioned that one of our goals of FinTech Poland is promoting Polish financial sector and Polish digital finance sector abroad. Yes, it's true, and we are trying to observe how Poland and Polish financial sector and actually Polish financial center is perceived from abroad. And unfortunately, according to the last Global Financial Center Index, Warsaw as a financial center is ranked 62nd, the most competitive financial center in the world. So it's not the best position. And the Prague and the Berlin and Copenhagen those centers are much higher in rank, but I'm not so sure whether it really reflects the strength of those centers.
And sorry, the second question in few words, because we have a limit of 3 minutes for each answer.
Last sentence about the promotional Polish digital finance abroad. We launched the initiative Future Finance Poland, and our aim is to promote Poland as a financial center abroad. So this is one of the key activities of our foundation in this area. Referring to the second question, more geopolitical situation, of course, we witness influx of really well-qualified migrants from Ukraine, from Belarus, and only within the Polish business harbor, which is a governmental program for relocation workers from Ukraine, IT workers from Ukraine and Belarus, almost 50,000 talents were relocated from those countries to Poland. So it means only within this one program. So
it means that we can see a positive influence on the market. Of course, we hope that the war will end at a moment, and they will perhaps go back to develop their country. Professor Cornelia, thank you for your answer. Professor Cornelia Stengel, FinTech aim to disrupt the old ways of doing business. So it can be tricky for them to assess legal risks and figure out which regulation apply to them. As partner of a law firm, can you tell us about Switzerland's FinTech license and how it helps innovators in Switzerland compared to other jurisdictions?
Yeah, thank you very much. Compared to other jurisdiction is the key word, no? If we compare our legislation with European legislation, we have, or let's start the other way around, we have similar goals. No? Financial sector regulation always aims financial stability, like consumer protection and so on. So we have the same goals. But in Switzerland, we have a completely different way
Which means that this is a kind of different approach?
I think it's a different approach. We have very principle-based legislation, which leaves much room for innovation. But we also need, I wrote an article last week, that's why it's really important. We need guidance from our regulators, from our authorities, how to implement exactly, that they will always lies in the details. So we have like similar goals, but another way to regulate. In the end, I think the rules applying in Switzerland and European Union also are similar. So we try to be on a level playing field, but we also have a very innovative legislation. For example, the DLT legislation entered into force a year ago. Or we do like small amendments on a banking act, or we have like this FinTech license you mentioned. I can elaborate on this topic for hours, but just you mentioned the FinTech license. This is one license would be nice for companies in the payment sector, prepaid payment systems, for example, because you can collect deposits from the public up to 100 million Swiss francs without the banking license. No. So you have the hurdles are not so high, and you can act a bit like a bank.
Thank you. Mr. Thibaut Rouquette, as F10 Ventures support the early collaboration between startups, incubators and investors, you can recognize patterns in the FinTech ecosystem. What is your assessment of the ecosystem in Switzerland, and what is unique about Switzerland as a FinTech location?
Well, a few things come to my mind when thinking of like the unicity of Switzerland as a FinTech ecosystem. Maybe the first one, a bit unconventional, is when you think financial centers, and Switzerland is clearly one of the big financial centers, you typically have in mind the skyscraper, the big buildings, the Manhattan, the Warsaw Spire. Interestingly, one of the things unique about Switzerland is that you have FinTech in between lakes and mountains. And it seems maybe like, a bit like a weird thing to say on a panel for the Polish Swiss Innovation Day, but I think it's an important one to just understand that there's this entire mindset, and you're very close to nature, and it makes it very unique compared to all the other financial centers and FinTech centers that I had the chance to work for or visit in the past few years. The second, maybe more conventional, like I can mention here, and which is key, and which I think Switzerland is really leading, is obviously everything related to the crypto scene, digital asset. We just mentioned the DLT regulation, where clearly, I mean, all the biggest blockchain technologies are somewhere into the crypto valley in Zug, which is close to Zurich. So I think this is clearly one of the places where it's very thriving. There's still like lots to do, but it's really unique that you don't see anywhere else in the world. And then maybe the third point that comes to my mind, which is more like where we have the potential, but are still like more to do, is around the area of wealth management. I mean, Switzerland is leading center for wealth management globally. Yet we have WealthArc here in the panel, which is great. I think we can see much, much more. We have a wealth transfer coming. We still have the old way of doing a lot of wealth management, and I think there's a huge potential in Switzerland to tap next into FinTech in wealth management. So to summarize, FinTech between lakes and mountains, the DLT and crypto space, which is the big one in the world, and then the potential for wealth management FinTech.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Radomir Mastalerz, WealthArc equips wealth management with the latest technologies and digital innovations to speed up process and increase client success. You know both the Polish and Swiss markets very well. What similarities and what differences you can find in that area?
Thank you for this question. The similarities are obvious to me. Both countries, Switzerland and Poland, have drive for innovation, drive for digitalization. They just chose different paths how to achieve that. So the two main differences I see is, first of all, is time horizon. So Switzerland is really looking forward in like 20, 30 years forward. What's going to happen, how our decisions today are impacting the future. Even the small companies, small businesses, they really think about every decision they make, how it's going to impact the future of their business. And in Poland,
Do you think that the legal environment has an influence here, comparing the European legal environment and the Swiss environment?
I think it's both legal I would say environment, which is much more stable than in Poland or in European Union, and the culture that was built over the years in Switzerland. And I think second big difference between Poland and Switzerland is the risk appetite. So Switzerland, I think, is much more risk averse, and the decision process is I think longer. But once it's made, they're really persistent and stick to it, and for many years and move forward. And
so you told us that the Polish KNF, the financial supervisory institution, is less strict than in Switzerland?
I'm not saying it's less strict, it's more strict. I'm just saying that the legal framework in Switzerland is more stable than in Poland over time.
Okay, I understand. Thank you for...
Yes? What I think it's good in Poland, that there's more approach like trial and error approach. So there's more acceptance to make failures, try different things, and then choose what's best.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Matteo Bernardis, after returning from Hong Kong, you launched UBS Next, the corporate venture capital initiative of UBS for early stage fintechs. From the perspective of UBS as an investor, what hurdles do fintech startups face, and what roles can risk-taking VC initiative like UBS Next play?
Thank you, and I hope that you can still hear me. So when we came to set up and launch UBS Next, the idea was that we would create another channel for us to connect with the startups and help them distribute the product, connect with the organization to help us innovate. And the startups that we talk to are companies that work with us directly, so more like corporate technology type of solutions, or can be like fintechs that distribute in a sort of B2B2C through us, or even direct to consumer, so different models. What is common across all of them is that they are looking for a channel to distribute, and also they need to learn how to navigate a bank of the size and complexity as UBS. So we launched Next with not only as an investment initiative, but also with other parts. So we have an incubator that we use to try out these technologies and connecting with the business more easily. We do a lot of work around intelligence to understand where we need to focus our efforts, just to not to waste time in areas that we don't think that are going to yield any potential. And we also have what we call a catalyst, which effectively tries to make the process of onboarding, running proof of concept and sort of trying out new things easier. So really our job is to create that channel, get to know the companies and work with them, and then make it easy for them to work with us.
Okay, thank you. And the second round of questions, we'll start again with Mr. Paweł Widawski. And the question will be a little bit related to the previous panel. To what extent is sustainability a concern or even a selling point for Polish fintech firms?
I believe both. On the one hand, it's quite a challenge. As it was said today, ESG requirements are really tough. And it seems that even for big financial institutions, for banks, it's really a tough challenge. And within the next 2 years, about 50,000 enterprises across European Union will be obliged to implement ESG rules, and fintechs are no exception. So this is a great challenge. I have the impression that it's still a terra incognita for fintechs in Poland. So they definitely need some help how to comply with ESG regulations. But on the other hand, it's a great opportunity. Great opportunity.
And perhaps it's easier than in other sectors, yes, comparing to, for example, a simple industry you're based on services, and I think that here it could be an opportunity for you.
It is opportunity specifically because fintechs have great access to breakthrough technologies like big data, artificial intelligence, and they, thanks of that, they can really benefit for or contribute to sustainability. So I believe that absolutely this is a great opportunity. We even here in Poland we observe a number of really interesting ventures focused on carbon footprint measurement, and they expand really aggressively also abroad. So I believe it's opportunity for Polish fintechs.
Okay, thank you. And the next question, Cornelia. FinTech has the potential to individualize financial products and services, but taking into account demographic changes and clients' expectations regarding sustainability, in which areas and how does your association, I mean the Swiss FinTech Innovations, support such innovation in Switzerland?
Yes, thank you. Swiss FinTech Innovations, as you mentioned before, is an association of banks and insurance companies, and the association tries to report, analyze trends, but also gives a playground for banks and insurances to try to find a way to comply with the new rules, be it in FinTech or in sustainability, without having exposed themselves already. So you can use the association as working place, exchange experience, and for this reason we work together with many partner associations. I want to mention the Polish one, because with the Swiss-Polish Blockchain Association we have these exchanges too. So I think that what an association can do is not deliver the solutions, but giving the ground, a basis, and maybe sometimes push a bit in a special direction.
Okay, thank you. Are your organization responsible, for example, for some legal lobbying? Or not?
We are let's say we have different projects, and we have in all the projects we have different people with different skills. So we have one working group with which is called Regulations Working Group, and there we have the legal guys from all our members, and we are building opinion, and we give the opinion to the authorities or the legislators. So we have, or we try to have some influence in the end.
Okay, with some small suggestions. Okay, thank you. Thibaut, the F10 has hubs in Switzerland, Singapore and Spain. How different are FinTech ecosystem in these 3 locations? Which locations are ahead of the pack in terms of sustainability and climate FinTech? And perhaps could you add some words about your experience concerning the Polish market, because I know that previously you've been here.
Yeah. All right, so let me start with the first one, the differences between ecosystem. I think it could also be a long discussion, so I would definitely not do it into the 3 minutes, but I think FinTech by definition is also like a...
By the way, this watch doesn't work.
Yeah, that's what I say. Yeah.
And this is a Swiss conference.
Yeah, but we're in Poland. Who do we blame? So the part of, I think FinTech is very much local. One of the reasons, so really global and local. If you want to have FinTech ambition, you need to really think global, and that's great to see that in Poland, like the Polish entrepreneurs are thinking more and more global. But you have to be very local for the regulation, the different the different players on the market. So, I mean, some of the difference we see, Switzerland, as I mentioned, we have the wealth management, but it's still like a lot of this like very open association. It's very easy into the market to have discussion with all type of players from the ecosystem, and it's really happening on a constant basis. Spain, we have seen a lot more of like still local mindset, which was interesting to see for us, with also the startups and the companies which had the same syndrome of thinking like Spain is a market big enough, so our fintech could be only for Spain. Singapore has been involved in fintech with like, I mean, the authority, the MAS has been involved in very early stage of fintech since 2014, and probably before. So very high engagement of, for example, the regulator
the
themselves.
Singapore government is very strong in regulations
Exactly.
for the fintech sector.
Yeah, exactly.
They are in the top of the world.
Yeah, and it's incredible like how active they were. In the previous roles, they were investing into like, I mean, they were supporting us in Startup Bootcamp in 2014 for the first accelerator we were launching in Singapore, which was incredible. So global, then you had the question around sustainability and climate fintech. By the way, F10 published a climate fintech report where we have analyzed over 400 companies. It's available online. You go on to f10.global, and you will have insights on the climate fintech that we see around the globe. I think we had like some interesting discussion also today, but sustainable finance and climate fintech we don't have clear winner yet. So from the report we could extract, Europe is leading as a continent. It's clearly like at the moment in terms of climate fintech #1 that we've seen. But we don't have yet a capital of climate fintech or sustainable finance, which big message would be like, it would be great to indeed see all this competition or even co-petition between London, Green Crown, Singapore, Luxembourg.
Yeah.
Please compete, or co-opete, because we need like a global capital being the planet, not the cities. So yes, so still in terms of strong activity, we've seen into the early stage startups, Switzerland and the Nordics, where we actually have expanded for a program in the Nordics and the Baltics. And then, in terms of the experience that I had with Poland, that was one of the things that you have mentioned, but probably things have changed. I was spending a lot of time here between 2015 and 2018, and for me, what was impressive of the fintech scene of Poland was like driven by the banks. I mean, especially the retail side was very innovative compared to everything I've seen in every other countries I lived, where I could have my mobile banking, online banking, and do pretty much everything I wanted from day one when I entered into the country. So I think that was one of the specificities.
This is related to the history of the Polish banking sector after the collapse of communism.
Yes.
Because in 90s, we privatized around 70% of our banking sector, and the consequence was that we had a lot of investors from different countries. So we've created a very competitive market, and the consequence of this was the creation of fintechs, of course, combining with the high level of the education in the IT sector. So that was the story. Thank you for your answer. And the next question, Radomir. WealthArc provides technological and digital solutions for wealth managers. How do sustainability metrics, which are likely to grow in importance, fit into your data-driven wealth management platform?
Thank you. So we ask our customers, wealth managers, asset managers, family offices, last year, we asked them a question whether they want to see ESG data on our platform. And they all raised hands, said yes, of course. And then we said, okay, but it's not for free, you need to pay for this data. And it's okay, let's wait then a bit and see what happens. So I would say that the good example comes from the top, so on the government level, on the bank level, it's already happening now, but for the SMEs, the small, medium-sized companies, they are still waiting for this, I would say, adoption of the ESG. And for this to happen, I mean, a few things needs to be in place. First of all, companies needs to disclose the ESG information regularly and in unified form. It needs to be quantifiable, so you need to be able to compare those different ESG information between different companies. And then WealthArc comes into place where we apply those ESG ratings to the real investment portfolios where the customer can see the ESG score of the whole portfolio. So I think it's coming, but I think the small and mid-sized companies and asset managers are not there yet in terms of ESG. It will come.
Okay, thank you. And Matteo, the last question. In which areas do incumbents like UBS most need the innovative power of startups to make the financial service delivery fit for the 21st century?
Thank you. So the short answer, I think it's everywhere, really, and then I'll go for the slightly longer answer. But if you think about how our industry has changed, we used to be, compared to 10, 15 years ago, we used to be a lot more capital intense, and technology was more frankly, more a headache and sort of the legacy platform than an opportunity. I think now it's definitely not the case anymore. And the connectivity between tech and business is stronger than ever, to the extent that there's almost like a blurred line sometimes. This is because, like all the other business models, we are being digitized. But what it also means is that you need to forget about creating your sort of silo where everything is built internally, and you don't need to rely on third-party applications, because it's just unfeasible. You wouldn't be able to deliver so much so fast, with also technical obsolescence being so rapid. So that's a general statement. Now, for UBS being a wealth manager-centered universal bank, and also personally, my belief, I'm 100% with what Thibaut said earlier. So I think wealth management is a huge has huge potential, because other parts of our industry, like retail, have been disrupted much earlier. I think partially because of higher pressure on margins, but also because it's a simpler industry. But now we have the technological tools to understand clients a lot better, to be a lot closer to clients. Think about sort of embedded models, or sort of touch point models, where you can be everywhere, understand your client deeply, and rely and decrease your reliance on a client advisor to have to handle most of that relationship. And this is not absolutely, I don't mean this as a cost point, but I mean it as a quality of the relationship point, as a omnipresence, understand it, personalization. There's a lot more that we can do thanks to technology, and I'm really looking forward to that part in particular. And maybe one other area which is a little bit further away, but I think we're still seeing just the beginnings of what the decentralized finance will bring to our industry. I know that this is a little bit trite, but I do see that maybe certain parts of our value chain are going to be much more distributed. Maybe you will have this decentralized autonomous organization managing certain building blocks, and then you will have financial institutions like us that sort of try to channel all those breadth of technologies into our client bases. So in general, are much more permeable and much more open than it is today.
Okay, thank you. Dear participants, do you have any questions to our panelists? We've prepared a microphone, so if somebody has a question. No?
This is a quiet audience, very listening to us, like they would be.
So if not, to summarize our panel, so what we can observe? We can observe a relatively similar legal framework in Switzerland, in Poland. In the same time, a different structure of the banking sector. In Switzerland, dominated by Swiss banks, of course. In Poland, with a completely different history, which is a kind of consequence of the communism period, the privatization, and now a kind of repolonization of the banking sector. And of course, we have to know that the structure of the banking sector, the history, can have a huge influence of the way of the development. You told about Singapore, we spoke about Switzerland, about Poland, Luxembourg, London, but I'm giving an example based on Africa concerning the FinTech development sector. The structure of the banking sector in Africa is completely different, because they do not have, or they hadn't offices big structure of the banking sector in each village or town, and it provokes a very sharp, very fast development of the mobile fintech sector in Africa. And in some details and in some aspects, we have to follow now Africa, even Switzerland and Poland. So we have to find good examples for a good development of our businesses. Thank you for your attention. And thank you, all panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Professor Witold Wiliński, for moderating the panel. And thank you to all the panelists.